Hi, this is Tim Muldoon. I am here reflecting with you during this virtual Easter retreat on the scripture for today, the 29th of May, and it's from the end of John's Gospel, this really interesting passage where Jesus has appeared to the Apostle Peter and asks him 3 times, "Do you love me?" And Peter, growing in frustration with why Jesus is kind of pounding him. And it recalls the time when Peter has denied Jesus 3 times. And so one gets the sense by reading this that Jesus is giving Peter the opportunity to kind of recall these denials, but also to be in the place where he is and to say effectively to Jesus, "You know that I love you." Now, here's the thing. In our translation of this text, we miss a nuance that's there in the original Greek. And specifically, I'm speaking of the word love. Jesus uses 2 different words in Greek, at least according to John's telling of this story, and they mean slightly different things. So in the first case, Jesus is asking, "Do you love me?" with this form of the verb to love, which some of us may recognize in its noun form, agape love, which we usually translate as a kind of self-giving love. And then at the end, in his third asking, he uses a different verb, phileo, which means kind of to have a friendship with somebody. It's, for example, in the word Philadelphia, the name of the city, the phila in Philadelphia is that kind of brotherly love, the city of brotherly love. Okay, so Jesus is doing a little bit of a play on words here, and Peter himself doesn't actually answer Jesus's first question. So remember, Jesus is saying to Peter, "Do you have a readiness to love me in this agapic way, to give of yourself, to behave in the way that I have behaved towards God's beloved poor?" And Peter just says, "No, you're a good friend of mine," and then Jesus at the end kind of, goes along and says, "Okay, well, are you my friend?" And Peter says, "Well, come on, yes, of course I am." But Peter misses a key point, and Jesus hints at it at the end of this text when he's hinting at the way that Peter will die. And when I read this text, I think of the Pauline Chapel in Rome. It's just off of the Sistine Chapel, which is much more well known. But the Pauline Chapel also has a painting by Michelangelo, the same person who did the Sistine Chapel. And it's a depiction of Peter being crucified upside down, which is, according to tradition, the way that Peter died after following Jesus throughout the rest of his life and ministering to the people that God has called to himself. And there's this remarkable gaze that Peter has on whoever walks into the chapel. And by the way, Michelangelo knew it would be the new pope. And so Peter's eyes just gaze at this person as he's entering the chapel. And the gaze of Peter is, remember, as he's crucified upside down. I tend to think that it's at that point that Peter really understands what Jesus' questions were and what they meant to him way back at this point when he's about to, be launched into this life of apostleship. Because at that point when he's dying, he knows the cost of what it means to love Jesus and to feed the sheep as Jesus exhorts him to do. So this is an interesting challenge for us as we consider Jesus' 3 words to ourselves. If we put ourselves in the place of Peter, "Do you love me?" Jesus asks. And I think our only answer is going to be something like, "Well, I'll try to. I'll do my best." And I might not fully understand what that means until my own death, but I will act faithfully. I will love generously in that way that the verb form of agape means. I will give of myself the way that God has given of himself, the way that Jesus has given of himself in my life. So as we move forward in this retreat, let us resolve in prayer to bring before God the desire to love, even if we don't know fully what that means. My name is Tim Muldoon. Thanks for listening.